It was 11:47 p.m. on a Saturday. That should have been my first red flag. The text message lit up my phone screen with 5 simple words. We need to talk. 5 words that send a shiver down the spine of anyone in a relationship. They came from Natasha Worthington, and they found me right when I was elbow deep in transmission fluid, underneath a beautiful but stubborn 1967 Mustang. I was just trying to figure out why second gear was grinding so badly. I grabbed a rag that was probably more grease than actual fabric by now and wiped my hands. I typed back. Now, it's almost midnight. Her reply was instant and sharp. It can't wait. So, that was it. I cleaned up as best I could and drove to her apartment. It was one of those expensive high-rises in the financial district. The kind with a doorman who always gave my oil-stained work truck this look, like it was a piece of garbage, contaminating his pristine, circular drive. I rode the silent, sterile elevator up to the 23rd floor. I let myself in with a key she'd given me 6 months ago, a key that suddenly felt cold and foreign in my hand. And there she was, sitting on her plush, white leather couch, wearing clothes that probably cost more than my entire week's earnings. She didn't get up when I walked in. She didn't even smile. She just fixed me with those ice blue eyes, the same ones I'd fallen head over heels for, and said the words that would change everything. I think we should end this. I just stood there, frozen in my work boots. I'd managed to change my shirt, but I hadn't had time for a shower, and I suddenly felt incredibly out of place. The world tilted, hoosed slightly. What? I managed to get out. Us, she said, her voice cool and measured. This relationship, it's just not working. I was completely baffled. Not working. Natasha, we were just talking about taking a trip together. Last week you said you wanted to introduce me to your parents at their summer house in the Hamptons. She crossed her legs, a movement that was so elegant, so smooth, and yet so final. I've been thinking about that, she said. And I realized it would be embarrassing. Embarrassing. The word hung in the air between us. Landon, you're a mechanic, she continued, her voice devoid of any warmth. You work in a garage. You come home covered in grease. You drive a truck that's older than you are. My father is a hedge fund manager. My mother sits on the board of the Metropolitan Museum. What am I supposed to tell them? That I'm dating someone who changes oil for a living? Each word felt like a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. I thought you didn't care about that stuff, I said, my voice barely a whisper. You said you liked that I worked with my hands. You called Morel, compared to all those finance guys you used to date. She had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable for a moment. That was when this was casual. Fun. A bit of slumming, if I'm being completely honest. Slumming, that's what our 11 months had been to her. But I'm 31 years old, Landon, she went on, her composure returning. I need to start thinking about my future. About marriage, about the kind of life I want to build. And that life, it doesn't include a mechanic. My heart sank. A mechanic who loves you, I said, a desperate last attempt. She sighed, as if explaining a simple concept to a child. Love isn't enough. It's a nice fairy tale, but this is the real world. I need someone who can match my lifestyle, someone who understands my world, who won't embarrass me at charity galas or company dinners. I should have been furious. I should have yelled, defended my profession, my life, my worth as a person. But I couldn't. I just felt hollow, empty. So, that's it. Primera, ask it. 11 months, and you're ending it because of my job. It's not just your job, Landon. It's everything it represents. The lack of ambition, the settling for mediocrity. She stood up then, smoothing down her perfect, expensive dress. You could be so much more. You're smart. You could go back to school, get a real career, make something of yourself. But you're content to spend your life under cars, making barely enough to get by. I tried to argue I make decent money, but she cut me off. Compared to what compared to me. 2, my friends. 2. anyone in my social circle. Her tone was sharp, dismissive. I'm sorry, Landon. You're a good person, but you're not the right person for me. I need to be with someone who's going somewhere. Someone with ambition. Someone who matters. Someone who matters. Those 3 words hit me harder than anything else she'd said. They echoed in the silent, cavernous space that had just opened up inside my chest. Without another word, Primera Wolakedover placed her apartment key on the marble countertop and turned away. I walked to the elevator, rode down 23 floors in complete silence, feeling like my chest was slowly collapsing in on itself. The doorman didn't even glance at me as I pushed through the glass doors and walked out into the cool night air. I got back into my old truck, the one she despised so much, and I just sat there for a full 20 minutes before I could even think about driving. I wasn't crying. I think I was too shocked for tears. I just sat, staring into the darkness, replaying the entire conversation in my head, wondering if she was right. Was I settling? Was being a mechanic, a job I loved and was proud of, something that made me less? That night was 3 years ago. 3 years since Natasha Worthington looked me in the eyes and told me I didn't matter. 3 years of those words. Someone who matters ringing in my ears. Little did she know, and little did I know at the time, that her rejection wouldn't be the end of my story. It would be the fuel that ignited the beginning of a whole new chapter. Those 3 years changed absolutely everything. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever felt like you weren't good enough, hit that subscribe button, because what comes next is a journey you won't want to miss. See you in the next one. The drive back was silent for the first 10 minutes. Natasha sat in the passenger seat, looking smaller than I remembered, her usual confidence completely stripped away by her circumstances. I kept my eyes on the road, trying to figure out what exactly I was feeling. Was it satisfaction? Vindication? Maybe even pity? It was probably a mix of all 3. "This is a nice truck," she said finally, breaking the silence. "It gets the job done." Still so modest. "That hasn't changed about you." "A lot has changed about me," I replied, keeping my tone even. "I can see that." She glanced at me. "Your company looks impressive." I saw the website. "You have facilities, employees, major restoration projects. You've really built something real." "Yeah, well, turns out there is decent money in being just a mechanic, if you're good at it and smart about business." The dig landed exactly where I intended. I saw her wince in the soft glow of the dashboard lights. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "for what I said back then, for all of Italiano. I was cruel and snobbish, and I judged you for things that didn't matter. They mattered to you," I pointed out, "because I was stupid, because I'd been raised to value all the wrong things. Money, status, appearances. I thought those were what made a person worthwhile." "And now?" I asked. "Now I know better. Too late, but better." We drove in silence again for a few minutes. The city grew closer, its tall towers rising like steel giants against the darkening sky. "Where am I taking you?" I asked. "Brighton, the apartments on 3rd Street. Not the luxury high-rise she used to call home." Brighton was a decent neighborhood, but it was a world away from where she used to live. It was another stark sign of how far she'd fallen. "So what happened?" I asked, my curiosity getting the better of me. "Really? You don't go from a penthouse to Brighton just from a few bad investments." She was quiet for a long time, just watching the city lights blur past. Then she spoke. "There was a man, Holden Ashworth. Very successful, incredibly charming. We started dating about a year after you and I split up. He convinced me to invest in his venture, swore he could triple my money." She took a shaky breath. "Instead, he emptied my accounts and just disappeared. By the time I realized what was happening, he'd taken everything. My savings, my investments, even money I'd borrowed against my future earnings." "Did you go to the police?" I asked, stunned. "Of course." But he'd covered his tracks perfectly. Offshore accounts, shell companies, falsified documents. The investigators told me I wasn't his only victim, but that recovering any of the money was highly unlikely. Then I lost my job. It was company policy about financial liability. I lost my apartment because I couldn't make the mortgage payments, and I lost most of my so-called friends because I couldn't afford to maintain that lifestyle anymore. And the Ferrari? I asked, remembering the reason she was in my life again. I bought it before everything fell apart. It's the last valuable thing I own. I was hoping to sell it, use the money to start over. But now, she gestured helplessly, her voice trailing off. Now it needs an $80,000 repair. Despite everything, despite the past cruelty, the dismissal, the genuine pain she'd caused me, I felt a flicker of sympathy. Nobody deserved to be scammed and left with nothing like that. Why didn't you sell it before it broke down? I asked. I had a buyer lined up. They were supposed to come and inspect it next week. But then this happened, and now there's no sale and no way to fix it, and she stopped, collecting herself. I'm sorry. This isn't your problem. No, I said, my voice flat. It's not. We pulled up to the apartment building in Brighton. It was clean but generic. A far cry from the opulent lobby she was used to. I put the truck in park. The silence was heavy again. I wanted to just let her get out and drive away, to close this chapter for good. But I couldn't, so me part of me, the part that remembered the girl I once loved, before money and status corrupted her, felt a pull. So that's it? I asked. You're just going to give up? She looked at me, her eyes tired. What choice do I have? I have nothing, Jake. Less than nothing. You have the car, I said. It's broken, but it's still a Ferrari. It's an asset. An asset I can't fix. It's just a very expensive loan ornament at this point. I thought for a moment, an idea forming in my mind. It was a crazy idea. A risky one. Part of me screamed not to get involved. But another, louder part of me saw an opportunity, not just for her, but for me. An opportunity for a different kind of victory. What if I fix it? I said. She stared at me, her expression unreadable. You just said it's an $80,000 job. I can't pay you. I know. I'm not asking you to. I'll fix it on my dime. My time. My... My parts. Why would you do that? She asked, her voice filled with suspicion. Let's call it an investment, I said, leaning back in my seat. I fix the car. We sell it after I recoup my $80,000 for the repairs, plus another $20 for my labor and time. We split the rest of the profit. 50-50. She was silent, processing it. It was a generous offer, more than generous. It was a lifeline. You'd do that? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Yeah, I said. But there are conditions. What conditions? First, I'm in charge of the sale. We sell it through my network. 2. My buyer. No arguments. Second, while I'm working on it, you're going to work for me. At my shop. Her eyes widened. Work for you. Doing what? I don't know anything about cars. You'll clean. You'll answer phones. You'll run errands. You'll do whatever my office manager tells you to do. You'll get paid minimum wage, just like any other new hire. I watched her face, expecting outrage, a flash of the old Natasha. But it never came. Instead, she just looked down at her hands. She was cornered, and we both knew it. You want to humiliate me? She said softly. No, I corrected her. I want you to see what real work looks like, the kind you used to look down on. I want you to earn your way back, $1 at a time. This isn't a handout, Natasha. It's a chance, probably the only one you're going to get. The silence stretched on. I could see the war happening inside her. Her pride versus her desperation. Finally, she lifted her head and met my gaze. Okay, she said. I'll do it. Okay, I echoed. Be at my shop tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, sharp. Don't be late. I watched her get out of the truck and walk into the soulless apartment building without looking back. As I drove away, I wasn't sure if I had just made the smartest decision of my life, or the biggest mistake. One thing was for sure, though. Things were about to get very interesting. Will Natasha stick with the deal? Let me know your predictions in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next part. I pulled up in front of her building. It was clean, well-maintained, but nothing special. The kind of place young professionals lived before they made it big, or where formerly successful people lived after they lost everything. Natasha unbuckled her seatbelt, but didn't get out right away. What's your assessment? Honestly, can the car be fixed? I sighed. Probably, but it won't be cheap, and it won't be quick. An engine replacement on a 488 is a 6-week job, minimum. And if there's other damage, it could be even longer. And the cost you said $80,000 minimum. That's the best case. Scenario, worst case, could be double that. She closed her eyes, the weight of the numbers hitting her. I don't have it. I have maybe $10,000 in savings. That's it. What about payment plans? Credit, she shook her head. Max it out. Max it out. The con artist made sure of that before he disappeared. We just sat there for a moment in the idling truck, the reality of the situation settling over us like a thick fog. Then I heard myself speaking, almost surprising myself. I'll tell you what, I said. Let me do a full assessment. No charge for that. Once we know exactly what's wrong, we can figure out the options. Landon, you don't have to do that, ... I'm not doing it for you. I cut her off gently. I'm doing it because it's a Ferrari, and I'm curious about the damage. If you can't pay for the repairs, we might be able to work out an arrangement. I could buy the car from you, repair it myself, and then sell it. You'd get something out of it, just not as much as if you sold it privately. A little flicker of hope appeared in her eyes. Really? You'd do that? No promises until I see the full extent of the damage, but yeah, maybe. Thank you. She reached for the door handle, but then paused again. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. Why are you helping me? After everything I said, everything I did, I don't deserve your kindness. I thought about that for a second. I thought about the hurt 18-year-old mechanic who'd he driven away from this very spot 3 years ago, feeling completely worthless. I thought about everything I had built since then, every single person I'd proven wrong, every assumption about me I had shattered. Because you were right about one thing, I finally said. I could be more, and I am more. But it's not because I stopped being a mechanic, it's because I became a better one. Because I turned something you saw as mediocre into something exceptional. And maybe, ... maybe I want you to see that, to understand what you missed. She nodded slowly, processing my words. I think I'm starting to. She got out of the truck, then leaned back in. The assessment. When will you know? Come by the shop on Monday afternoon? Around 3? I'll have answers for you by then. Restoration Vault. The one on Industrial Drive. That's us. I'll be there. She closed the door and walked toward her building, the sound of her heels clicking on the pavement. I watched her until she was safely inside, then put the truck in drive and pulled away. My phone rang. It was Cisco. How did the rescue mission go? He asked. Complicated, isn't it always? Hey, listen. Torres finished up the Corvette. It looks incredible. You need to come see it before we ship it out on Wednesday. I'll be there in 20. I hung up and headed back to Restoration Vault, my mind churning. Natasha Worthington. After 3 years of complete silence, she had crashed back into my life with a broken Ferrari and a sob story about being scammed. A part of me wanted to believe her. I wanted to think that she'd genuinely changed, that loss and hardship had taught her the lessons that success never could. But another part of me, the part that still remembered the casual cruelty in her voice when she told me. I didn't matter wondered if this was all just some kind of manipulation. What if she'd somehow learned about my success and manufactured this whole crisis just to get back into my life? No. That felt paranoid. The broken engine was real. I saw it myself, the desperation in her voice. That was real, too. Whatever else Natasha might be, she wasn't that good of an actress. I pulled into the parking lot of Restoration Vault. The entire building was lit up, every bay occupied by a classic car in some state of resurrection. Through the big glass windows, I could see Torres working on the Corvette, his attention to detail as obsessive and perfect as ever. 'Tis was meanie. This success, this reputation, this business. I had built all of this from nothing, from a single garage bay and a dream of being more than what people expected of me. And Natasha, she had been the catalyst. Her rejection had hurt so badly back then that I was left with only two choices: give up entirely or prove her wrong. I chose to prove her wrong. And now, here she was, biking my life broken and desperate, needing the help of the very mechanic she had once dismissed so easily. The universe, it seems, has a twisted sense of humor. Monday afternoon arrived with an unseasonable warmth. The entire weekend, my thoughts had been consumed by Natasha, her broken-down Ferrari, and what helping her could possibly mean for my business, and for me. My head mechanic, the brilliant Gabriela Torres, had spent Sunday morning going over the car. Now, her final report sat on my desk, a stark summary of the disaster: catastrophic engine failure, a damaged transmission, and completely fried electrical systems. The bottom line was a gut punch: a total repair cost of $127,000. Now, a car like that, a Ferrari in perfect condition, might be worth around $280,000. So, if we repaired it and sold it, we'd stand to make a modest profit. But honestly, the financial side of it wasn't what was pulling me in. It was the human element. This was about more than just a car. At precisely 2:55 p.m., Natasha walked through the main doors of Restoration Vault. She was dressed professionally, but in a more subdued way than I remembered. No power suits this time, just simple business casual. Her hair was pulled back neatly, and she wore minimal makeup. She looked like someone who was trying her best to make a good impression, but without the vast resources she once commanded. "Landon," she said, her smile a little nervous. "Thank you for seeing me." "Of course," I replied. "Come on back to my office." She followed me through the main workshop, and I couldn't help but watch her reaction. Her eyes widened as we passed bay after bay filled with automotive legends. We walked by a stunning 1954 Mercedes 300 SL Gullwing, a muscular 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda, and a classic 1967 Shelby GT 500. Each one of these cars represented a small fortune, hundreds of thousands of dollars in history and potential value. "This is incredible," she breathed, her voice filled with genuine awe. "You really built all of this?" "I started 3 years ago," I told her, "with just one bay and a big bank loan. Grew it from there." My office overlooks the main floor, a sort of command center. Through the large glass windows, she could see the entire operation humming below, technicians meticulously working on engines, managers coordinating logistics, a business that ran with the precision and purpose I'd always dreamed of. I gestured to a chair, and she sat down. I slid the assessment report across my desk to her. "That's the damage to your Ferrari. Primera Said simply." I watched her face as she read it, saw the color drain from her cheeks with each line. Her voice was barely a whisper when she spoke. $127,000. "Give or take," I confirmed. "The engine failure was catastrophic. When the coolant leaked out and you kept driving it, it set off a chain reaction. The intense heat warped the engine block itself, which in turn damaged the transmission. On top of that, it fried several key electrical systems. We're not just talking about an engine replacement anymore. This is a comprehensive, ground-up rebuild." She looked up, her eyes meeting mine, filled with a quiet desperation. "I don't have this kind of money. Not even close." "I know," I said gently, "which brings us to your options." She leaned forward slightly. "Which are?" "Option 1. You walk away. You can just abandon the car right here. You'll be out whatever you originally paid for it, but you won't be on the hook for a single dollar of the repair costs." "I paid $215,000 for it 2 years ago," she said, the number hanging in the air between us. I let out a low whistle. "That's a lot of money to just walk away from." "What's option 2? She asked, her voice tight. You sell it to me, AZ's, in its current damaged state. I'll give you $30,000, cash. I'll take on the repairs on my own timeline, sell it whenever I'm ready, and I'll keep whatever profit I make. You'll take a significant loss on your original investment, but you'll walk away with something in your pocket. She was silent for a moment, her mind clearly calculating the figures. 30,000 on a car I paid over 200,000 for, on a car that currently doesn't run and needs a six-figure repair bill to even think about moving, I reminded her. I'm the one taking all the risk here. She looked down at the report, then back up at me. There's no option 3. I leaned back in my chair, a plan that had been forming all weekend, finally ready to be unveiled. There's always an option 3. A small smile played on my lips. You could work for it. She blinked, confused. Work for it. You're in finance, right? Or you were, anyway. I need someone to handle the financial operations for Restoration Vault. I'm talking about accounting, investment strategy, planning for our future growth. Right now, I've got a part-time bookkeeper who handles the basic stuff, but we're expanding so fast that I'm getting overwhelmed. I need sophisticated, high-level financial management. Her eyes narrowed slightly, trying to understand where I was going with this. You want me to work here? As your accountant? As my chief financial officer? Technically, I corrected her. The salary would start at $90,000 a year, with performance-based bonuses. You'd get a full benefits package, health insurance, 401k matching, the standard stuff. In exchange for you taking the job, I would repair your Ferrari at my cost. No markup from me. You'd only pay for the parts and the direct labor. We'd set up a payment plan where you pay it back through payroll deductions over the next 2 years. She just stared at me, completely speechless for a long moment. Finally, she found her voice. Why? Why would you offer me that? Because, I said, leaning forward and meeting her gaze, I actually do need a CFO. And despite everything that's happened to you, you are incredibly qualified. You were at the top of your class at Wharton. You spent 7 years at a major investment firm and had a proven track record of success before that con artist destroyed your finances. I paused. I checked. Her expression shifted from confusion to surprise. You investigated me? I investigate everyone I'm considering hiring for a key position, I said, my tone matter-of-fact. It's standard business practice. Natasha fell quiet, her mind clearly racing, processing the sheer audacity of my proposal. The weight of the decision was visible on her face. If I take this job, she said slowly, thinking through every angle, I'd be working for you, reporting to you, taking orders from the mechanic I once dismissed. The man I told didn't matter. I held her gaze, not flinching. Yes, I said. You would. The silence in the office was thick with unspoken history and future possibilities. Everything was on the table, her past, my future, and the wreck of a beautiful car that had somehow brought our 2 very different worlds crashing together. Now, the choice was hers to make. That's humiliating, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Is it? I asked, keeping my own tone even. Or is it an opportunity to rebuild your career and your finances while working for a successful company? She finally met my eyes, the flicker of her old fire returning. Is this revenge? Some kind of elaborate payback for how I treated you? The question deserved an honest answer. Maybe a little, I admitted, but it's also legitimate business. I need help. You need money. The math works. What we do with the personal history is up to us. Her posture shifted, the businesswoman emerging from the wreckage. If I say yes, what would my role actually be? I slid the folder I'd prepared across the desk. Restoration Vault currently operates 3 locations with plans for a 4th. Revenue last year was $32 million. This year, we're tracking toward $45 million. We're profitable, but we're growing fast, and our financial systems haven't kept pace. I need someone to build infrastructure, proper accounting systems, financial controls, investment strategies for expansion, possibly even acquisition planning if we identify the right opportunities. She opened the folder, her professional instincts taking over completely. I watched her scan the financials, her eyes moving quickly, absorbing the data. I saw the exact moment she recognized the opportunity, the subtle widening of her eyes, the way she leaned in closer. "This company is positioned for major growth," she said, her voice now firm and analytical. "Your revenue model is sustainable. Your margins are healthy. Your market position is strong. With proper financial management, you could scale to 100 million in 3 years." "That's what I'm hoping," I said, "but I can't do it alone." She looked up from the papers. "And you think I'm the right person? I think you're competent, experienced, and currently highly motivated. That's a good combination." She set down the folder, a mask of composure settling over her features. "Can I think about it?" "You can, but I need an answer by the end of day Wednesday. I'm interviewing other candidates on Thursday." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Other candidates who don't come with 3 years of relationship baggage. Other candidates who might not be as motivated to prove themselves," I countered. She smiled slightly, a real one this time. "You're playing chess while I'm playing checkers. I'm running a business while you're trying to rebuild a life," I corrected her gently. "Those are different games." Natasha stood up. "Can I see it?" "The Ferrari? See what we're actually talking about?" "Sure." I led her out of the quiet of my office and into the bustling noise of the main repair bay. Her car was on a lift, its engine compartment gaping open, the damage visible and devastating. My top mechanic, Torres, was underneath, examining the transmission. "Torres," I called out, "this is Ms. Worthington, the Ferrari's owner." Torres rolled out from under the car on his creeper, wiping his hands on a rag. "Ms. Worthington," he said with a grim nod, "your car is thoroughly cooked. Engine said transmission damaged. Wiring harness melted in 3 places. Honestly, I'm impressed you made it to the highway before it died." "How long to repair?" Natasha asked, her voice tight. 8 weeks minimum," Torres replied bluntly. "Longer if we run into unexpected issues, which we always do with cascade failures like this." "And the cost? Is Landon's estimate accurate?" Torres grunted. 1-20-7 is conservative. Could go higher. Natasha just stared at the car, her last valuable possession. Now a very expensive paperweight. "I bought this to celebrate a promotion that I later lost," she said quietly. More to herself than to us. Seemed like such a good idea at the time. A symbol of success. "Symbols are expensive," I said, my voice softer than I intended. She looked away from the ruined car, her gaze distant. Everything I thought mattered was expensive, and none of it actually mattered. She turned back to me, her eyes locking onto mine. "Can we talk?" "Privately." We walked back to my office. This time, she was the one who closed the door behind us, sealing us in. "I need to ask you something," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "And I need you to be honest. Is this offer real? Or is this you playing games with me? Getting revenge by dangling an opportunity and then pulling it away?" "The offer is real," I said, meeting her gaze without hesitation. "Because if you're just trying to humiliate me, Natasha..." I cut her off. My voice was firm but not harsh. "I'm not a cruel person. I don't play games like that. You hurt me 3 years ago, and yeah, there's a part of me that enjoys this reversal of fortune. I'm human. But I'm not offering you a job to hurt you. I'm offering it because it makes business sense, and because... ... I paused, choosing my next words carefully. Because maybe we both deserve second chances. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "You're a better person than I am," she whispered. "I'm just a person. Same as you. We both made mistakes. The question is what we do next." She nodded slowly, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. "I'll take the job. If the offer still stands, I accept." I was surprised by her quick decision. Just like that. No negotiation. No asking for time to think. "What's there to think about?" she said, a new strength in her voice. "You're offering me a lifeline when I'm drowning. Only an idiot would turn that down. And whatever else I am, I'm not an idiot. Not anymore." "Okay then." I stood and extended my hand across the desk. "Welcome to Restoration Vault, CFO Worthington." She socketed her grip firm despite the slight tremor I could feel running through her hand. "Thank you, Landon. I won't let you down." "I know. I said, letting a small smile show. Because if you do, you're out on your ass and still owing me $127,000. She laughed. A real, genuine laugh that I hadn't heard in years. It was like a piece of the sun breaking through the clouds. Understood, boss. Start Monday, I told her, my tone shifting back to business. HR will handle the paperwork. And Natasha? I waited for her to meet my eyes again. This is a clean slate. Whatever happened between us before, it stays in the past. This is professional, not personal. Agreed, she said, her expression serious. But even as the word left my mouth, a part of me wondered if that was truly possible. If you could really separate the professional from the personal when your new chief financial officer was the woman who debroken your heart and told you that you didn't matter, I guess we were about to find out. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you want to miss the next part of this unfolding drama. Natasha started the following Monday, and man, within 2 weeks, I completely understood why she'd been so successful before her fall from grace. She was an absolute wizard with numbers, a strategic genius when it came to planning, and completely ruthless about cutting out any and all inefficiencies. It was incredible to watch. In our very first month together, she found $200,000 in cost savings. 200,000. She went through our supplier contracts, renegotiating deals left and right. She uncovered tax advantages we'd been completely oblivious to. She took our messy inventory management and streamlined the entire thing. She brought a level of structure to my beautiful chaos and transformed my successful Bud Missy operation into something that actually looked like a professional, legitimate company. During one of our weekly review meetings, she didn't mince words. Your parts ordering system was a nightmare, she told me. Straight up, you had 12 different suppliers, no volume discounts, and zero strategic planning whatsoever. It was costing you a fortune. I just listened, knowing she was right. I've consolidated us down to 5 key suppliers, she continued, negotiated bulk rates, and implemented a just-in-time inventory system. That alone should save us about $60,000 annually. I was blown away. Impressive was all I could manage. She just shrugged. It's basic financial management. Honestly, you should have done this years ago. I leaned back in my chair. Hey, I was a little busy building a business from the ground up. And now, she said, with a hint of a smile, you have someone to handle the details while you get to focus on growth. She slid another document across my desk, a thick binder full of spreadsheets and projections. Speaking of which, I've been analyzing that acquisition opportunity in Denver you mentioned. The Denver opportunity. It was this struggling restoration shop I'd had my eye on. They had some really talented technicians, top-notch guys, but the management was just terrible. The place was being run into the ground. I'd been tossing around the idea of buying it, bringing it under the Restoration Vault umbrella. So, what's your assessment? I asked, flipping through the pages. It's seriously undervalued, she said, her voice filled with conviction. The current owner is asking for $1.2 million, but based on their equipment, their existing client list, and the facility itself, it's worth at least $2 million, maybe more. She leaned forward. With proper management and full integration into our systems, I project it could be generating $5 million in annual revenue within 18 months. My eyes widened. $5 million. And the risks. Primera. De tu osc. The usual stuff, she replied, not fazed at all. Integration challenges, potential personnel issues, and the difficulty of market penetration in a brand new city. But I've already modeled 3 different scenarios for you: conservative, moderate, and aggressive. Even in the most conservative model, we achieve a full return on investment in 30 months. I scanned her analysis. It was incredibly thorough, deeply professional, and exactly the kind of detailed breakdown I needed, but never had the time or, frankly, the expertise to do myself. This was her world, and she was a master at it. Your recommendation? Buy it, she said, without a second of hesitation. Use it to establish our Rocky Mountain presence. The Denver market is completely underserved for high-end restoration. We could own that space. The ambition in her voice was contagious. Make it happen. I said. Start the due diligence? She smiled. This genuinely confident smile of someone who is absolutely in their element, doing work they were born to do. Already in progress, she said. The lawyers are reviewing the preliminary contracts as we speak. And that's how we fell into our rhythm. I gotta focus on the cars, the craftsmanship, the creative vision, the soul of the business. She, on the other hand, focused on the money, the strategy, the infrastructure, the brains of the operation. Together, we were turning Restoration Vault into something so much bigger and more powerful than I had ever dared to imagine on my own. It felt like we were an unstoppable team. But, of course, it wasn't always smooth sailing. About 6 weeks in, she found me in the main garage. Late. It was probably around 11 p.m. I was hunched over the engine of a '69 Camaro, personally rebuilding the carburetor. I had my headphones in, lost in the work. "What are you doing here?" she asked, startling me. I pulled off my headphones. "Working," I said, wiping grease from my hands onto a rag. "It's 11 o'clock at night. Landon, you have employees for this." Her tone wasn't accusatory, more ... concerned. "I know, but I like doing it myself sometimes," I explained. "It reminds me why I started this whole business in the first place. This is where it all began." She leaned against the workbench, crossing her arms and studying me. "You're the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. You really shouldn't be here rebuilding carburetors at midnight." And that ... that just hit a nerve. "Why not?" I shot back, and my voice was sharper than I intended. "Because it's beneath me now. Because successful people don't get their hands dirty." She flinched, taken aback by my sudden anger. The air in the garage grew thick with tension. "That's not what I meant, isn't it?" I cut her off, the frustration of a long-buried argument bubbling to the surface. "Isn't that exactly what you meant 3 years ago? That I should aspire to be something more than just a mechanic?" "Landon, well, look at me now, Natasha. I'm successful. I've got the revenue, the growth, the multiple locations you're helping me build. But guess what? I'm still a mechanic. That part of me hasn't changed. And it's not going to change just because you think CEOs should only sit in offices and look at spreadsheets." She was quiet for a long moment, the silence broken only by the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. She looked down at the floor, tenbake at me. "You're right," she said softly. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to imply." She stopped herself, took a breath and started over, her voice more genuine. "I worry about you. Tate. All. You work 16-hour days. You are personally involved in every single decision, from multi-million-dollar acquisitions to which spark plugs we order. You don't delegate enough. And that... that's just not sustainable in the long run." Her apology and the genuine worry in her eyes deflated my anger instantly. She wasn't judging me. She was looking out for me. And she was right. I was burning myself out. Maybe being a CEO wasn't just about building the business, but also about learning how to lead it without breaking yourself in the process. We stood there for another minute in silence, a new understanding passing between us. It was another challenge, another part of this crazy journey we were on, figuring out how to grow a company and how to grow with it. 3 months after Natasha came on board, we finalized the Denver acquisition for Restoration Vault. Just like that, we were running for locations in 3 different states, with 82 employees, and on track for $60 million in annual revenue. To celebrate, we threw a company-wide dinner, all 4 locations connected via video conference, and we had champagne toasts and speeches about our incredible growth and the bright future ahead. Natasha had orchestrated the entire event, from the catering to the impressive presentation slides, mapping out our trajectory. She'd even commissioned a fantastic short video that highlighted each location's unique projects and the amazing team members behind them. I raised my glass to the camera. "To Restoration Vault," I said, my voice echoing with pride, "and to every single person who makes this possible. We started this with a simple dream, to bring dead cars back to life. Now, we're building something much bigger, a community of true craftspeople who believe that excellence matters, that attention to detail is everything, and that doing things the right way is the only way. Thank you all for being a part of this incredible journey. Cheers erupted across 4 cities, a sound I'll never forget. After the official celebration wound down and employees started heading home, Natasha and I stayed behind to clean up the main office. That went really well, she said. Gathering empty plates? You did a fantastic job organizing it, I replied honestly. It's easy when you have something truly worth celebrating, she said, and then she paused, a glass in her hand. Can I ask you something personal? I braced myself. Depends on the question. She took a breath. Why did you really hire me? I've been thinking about it for months, and I still don't get it. You could have just bought my car, sent me on my way, and never looked back. Why bring me into your company? I thought about giving her a sanitized, professional answer. Something about her skills, her qualifications, her financial situation. But the relationship we'd built over the last 3 months, professional as it was, felt honest. It deserved an honest answer. Because I wanted you to see, I said, keeping it simple. See what? She asked, her brow furrowed. Everything you missed, I explained. Everything you dismissed when you told me I didn't matter. I wanted you to work here, to be part of this whole thing, to understand that the mechanic you rejected all those years ago built something worthwhile. Maybe that sounds petty. Maybe it's just my ego, but it's the truth. She was quiet for a moment, processing it. And she asked softly, have I seen it? You tell me, I said, putting the ball in her court. She set her glass down on the table and looked at me, her gaze direct and unflinching. I see it, she said, her voice clear. Every single day. I see a man who built a multi-million-dollar business from absolutely nothing. A man who employs dozens of people and treats every one of them with genuine respect. A man who could have taken his success and become exactly the kind of person I used to think powerful, untouchable. But instead, he stayed connected to the work he loves. He's the guy who still gets his hands dirty rebuilding carburetors at midnight, because that's who he actually is, not who he thinks he should be. Her words hung in the air between us. Is that your professional assessment? I asked, a hint of a challenge in my voice. Or your personal one? Does it matter? She shot back. It might, I said. She took a step closer, closing the small gap that separated us. Landon, I made a terrible, terrible mistake 3 years ago. I threw away something real for something completely shallow. I chose status over substance, appearance over authenticity, and I've spent every single day since then regretting it. Working here, it's made that regret sharper, more painful, but it's also given me something I never expected. What's that? I asked, my heart starting to pound. Hope, she whispered. Hope that maybe, eventually, you might be able to forgive me. Not forget I don't deserve that, but forgive. Give me a chance to prove that I've changed, that I've learned my lesson, that I see you now, really see you, and I finally understand everything I lost. This was it, the moment I had been simultaneously dreading and anticipating since the day she started. The moment where professional lines blurred into personal history, where the past and present crashed into each other. I had to decide, was this just about revenge being satisfied? Was the lesson learned? Or was this something more? Something else entirely? Natasha and I were in the middle of a delicate conversation when my phone rang. Cisco's name flashed on the screen. Hold that thought, I said, putting the phone to my ear. This better be important. It is. Cisco's voice was tight with stress. We've got a problem. A big one. A knot formed in my stomach. What kind of problem? The kind where someone broke into the Denver facility and stole the 1967 Shelby we were restoring for the Peterson Museum. $3 million just drove away in a hauler truck. My blood went cold. The Peterson Shelby was one of our highest profile projects when security discovered it 20 minutes ago. Police are on the scene now. But boss, it's worse than just the theft. I waited, They left a note. What kind of note? Cisco took a shaky breath. Thanks for the car, Vega. Holden Ashworth sends his regards. The name hit me like a physical blow. I looked over at Natasha, who'd gone completely pale. She had heard enough of my side of the conversation to understand. Holden Ashworth, Primera Said slowly. Watching her reaction, your ex-boyfriend, the con artist who emptied your accounts. Oh my God, she whispered, her eyes wide with horror. This is my fault. He must have found out I work here. Must have targeted you because of me. We don't know that for sure. I started, trying to keep my voice steady, trying to reassure her even as my own mind was racing. Yes, we do. She grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Landon, he's vindictive and smart. If he knows I'm connected to you, he'll destroy everything you've built just to hurt me. You have to fire me. Right now. Distance yourself. Protect the company. Her panic was palpable, but her solution was out of the question. I'm not firing you, I said, my tone firm. You have to. Don't you understand what he's capable of? Her voice cracked. Everything I touch turns to poison. Everyone who gets close to me gets hurt. That's what Holden does. He finds what you love, and he destroys it. And now he's targeting you because of me. The self-loathing in her voice was a knife in my gut. Or, I countered, looking her directly in the eyes. He's targeting you because you're working for me. Either way, this isn't just your problem. It's our problem. We deal with it together. She shook her head, pulling away. Landon, please, I'm flying to Denver tonight. I cut her off. You're coming with me. If Ashworth is making this personal, then we need to understand his game, and you're the only one who knows how he thinks. This is insane, she breathed, staring at me. As if I'd lost my mind. You should be cutting me loose, not bringing me deeper in. Probably, I admitted with a wry twist of my lips, but I've never been great at doing the smart thing when it comes to you. The words were out before I could stop them, hanging in the air between us. She just stared at me, a storm of emotions warring across her face. Confusion, fear, and something else, something I couldn't quite name. Why? She finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. I took a step closer, because 3 years ago, when you didn't even know me, you showed up in my garage and taught me that I could be more than what people expected. You saw potential in a guy covered in grease. That lesson went both ways. Natasha, maybe you can be more than the person who hurt me. Maybe we both get to be more than our worst moments. Her eyes glistened. Even if it costs you millions of dollars. The car's insured, I said, dismissing the financial loss. Ashworth is a problem we can solve. The real question is whether you're willing to help solve it. Her chin lifted, a spark of the fierce woman I knew returning to her eyes. Of course, I am. But Landon, you need to understand Holden is dangerous. Not physically, but strategically. He's always 3 moves ahead before you even realize the game has started. If he's targeting Restoration Vault, he has a plan. And that plan probably doesn't stop with one stolen car. Then we better figure out what that plan is before he executes it. The adrenaline was kicking in now, pushing aside the shock. This wasn't just the theft anymore. It was a challenge. I pulled out my phone and called Cisco back. Book us on the next flight to Denver, I commanded. Both of us, and get our lawyers on a conference call. We're going to war. This was no longer just about a car. It was about protecting my company, my legacy, and the woman who had, against all odds, found her way back into my life. Holden Ashworth had made a grave mistake. He had made this personal, and I was going to make him regret it. The flight to Denver was tense. Natasha spent the entire time briefing me on everything she knew about Holden Ashworth. She laid out his methods, his psychology, his patterns. She explained, he targets successful people. He builds relationships, gains their trust, and then exploits their vulnerabilities. He's charming, sophisticated, and knows exactly what to say to make you feel like he's your ally. I had to ask, so, how did he get to you? Natasha's voice was heavy. I met him at a charity gala. He presented himself as a venture capitalist, showed me these incredibly looking projections, and convinced me he could turn my savings into real wealth. By the time I realized the investments were completely fake, he'd vanished with everything, and the police couldn't find him. He uses shell companies, offshore accounts, false identities. The name Holden Ashworth is probably fake. It was just the name on the documents I signed. The investigators told me he is connected to at least a dozen similar scams over the past 5 years. And now, he's targeting my business. Why? She looked miserable. Because you matter to me. Because hurting you hurts me. That's how he operates. He finds what you care about and destroys it. We landed in Denver at 2 in the morning. A rental car was waiting for us at the airport. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to Restoration Vault's Denver facility. Police were still processing the crime scene, the place lit up by flashing lights. The detective in charge, a middle-aged, competent-looking guy named Ramirez, walked us through what they knew. It was a professional job, he said, his tone serious. They knew where the cameras were, had the security codes, and used a legitimate-looking hauler truck. The only mistake they made was leaving this note. Natasha shook her head. That wasn't a mistake. He wanted you to know it was him. He wanted to send a message. Ramirez nodded grimly. The note mentioned Ms. Worthington by name. Any idea why? I looked over at Natasha. She took a deep breath and laid out the whole story for him, the relationship, the scam, the stolen money. Ramirez listened intently, taking notes the entire time. So this is personal, he concluded. He's not just stealing cars. He's making a point. A thought hit me, which means the Shelby might not be the end game. What else could he be targeting? Natasha went pale. The auction. The Barrett-Jackson auction in Scottsdale next week. You bring in 6 cars, worth over $10 million total. I started to argue. Security for that is airtight. He couldn't possibly. She cut me off. He doesn't need to steal them. He just needs to destroy your reputation. If those cars don't show up, or they show up damaged, or if there's some kind of scandal surrounding them, Restoration Vault's credibility is ruined. High-end restoration is built entirely on trust. If you break that trust, the business collapses. She was right. I'd poured years of my life into building Restoration Vault's reputation. One major failure at a high-profile auction like Barrett-Jackson would shatter everything. I turned to Ramirez. We need to increase security at all locations. Background checks on every employee. New protocols. Cameras everywhere. Can we get police presence at our facilities? I can request extra patrols, he replied. But I can't station officers at private businesses long term. Then we hire private security, I declared. Whatever it takes. Over the next 72 hours, we transformed Restoration Vault into a fortress. We installed security cameras in every single bay. We hired armed guards for each location. We ran background checks on every person who came through our doors. It cost a fortune and threw our operations into chaos, but we couldn't risk another theft. Natasha barely slept. She was a whirlwind of activity, coordinating security upgrades, handling the insurance claim, and managing business continuity all at once. Watching her work so efficient, focused, and relentless, I saw the woman I'd fallen for 3 years ago. Before status and money had corrupted her perspective, she was still in there, hiding underneath the scars and regrets. On the 3rd night, we were alone in the Denver office, poring over hours of security footage, desperately trying to find any detail the police might have missed. Suddenly, Natasha pointed at the screen. There, she said, her voice sharp. That truck. The hauler that took the Shelby. Pause it. I froze the frame. She zoomed in on the license plate. That's a rental plate, she breathed. From Arizona. So Holden used to operate out of Arizona, Scottsdale. Specifically, where the Barrett-Jackson auction is held. The pieces clicked together in my mind. He's in Scottsdale, planning something for the auction. Or he wants you to think that. Could be misdirection. Either way, we need to be ready. The auction is in 4 days. We need to move those cars under maximum security. Or don't move them at all. Pull out of the auction. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. and let him win. Let him destroy our reputation by making us too scared to show up. Landon, your ego isn't worth risking everything. This isn't ego. I cut her off. This is business. If we pull out of Barra Jackson, every single client we have will wonder if we're reliable. The whole company is built on trust and reputation. We can't afford to look weak. She grabbed my arm, her grip tight, her eyes pleading. And we can't afford to walk into whatever trap he's set. You don't know Holden like I do. He's planned for every contingency. If you bring those cars to Scottsdale, something will go wrong. Then we make sure it doesn't how. She challenged. How do you outsmart someone who's always 3 moves ahead? A plan started to form. A risky one, but maybe our only shot, by making moves he doesn't expect. I pulled out my phone and dialed Cisco, my head of logistics. Change your plans, I said, the moment he answered. The Barrett Jackson cars don't ship Tuesday. They ship tonight. Different route, different hauler, different everything. And only you and I know the details. Boss, that's a massive logistics change. He started, the panic clear in his voice, which is exactly why Ashworth won't see it coming. Make it happen! I hung up before he could argue further and looked at Natasha. If he's planned for Tuesday, Monday night will catch him completely off guard. And if he's watching our facilities, seeing us scramble will make him think he's already won. Or it will make him accelerate whatever he's planning, she countered, her voice laced with worry. Let him try. We'll be ready. But even as I said the words, a knot of doubt tightened in my stomach. I wasn't sure I believed it myself. Natasha was right, Holden. Ashworth had proven he was smart, ruthless, and always ahead of the game. Going to Scottsdale felt exactly like walking into a trap. But what other choice did we have? Let him destroy everything I'd built from the ground up. Let him prove that Natasha's presence in my life was toxic. Demonstrate to the world that love in her because yes, in that moment, I was starting to realize that's what this terrifying, all-consuming feeling was, meant losing everything I'd ever worked for. No. Absolutely not. I'd rather fight and lose than surrender without even trying. I met her gaze, my resolve hardening. We're going to Scottsdale, I said, my voice firm. We're bringing the cars, and we're going to catch this bastard in whatever trap he's set for us. Because if we don't end this now, he'll keep coming after us forever. Natasha looked at me, her eyes a storm of emotions. Fear was there, plain as day. But there was something else, too. Something that looked like love, or at least a faint, flickering memory of it. Then I'm coming with you, she said, her voice barely a whisper but filled with conviction. If this goes wrong, it's my fault. I should be there. Deal. We flew to Scottsdale the very next day. The desert landscape stretched out below us, a vast, empty canvas where anything could happen. The cars, our prized collection, would arrive 12 hours later, transported by a top-tier security company that specialized in high-value cargo. The auction was in 2 days. 2 days to set up, inspect the vehicles, prepare for the biggest show of our lives, and 2 days to wait for Holden Ashworth. To make his move, the air was thick with tension, a silent countdown to a confrontation we knew was coming. We were on his turf now, playing his game. We just had to hope our last-minute change of plans had thrown him off enough for us to survive it. So Holden used to operate out of Arizona, Scottsdale, specifically where the Barra Jackson auction is held. The pieces clicked together in my mind. He's in Scottsdale, planning something for the auction. Or he wants you to think that. Could be misdirection. Either way, we need to be ready. The auction is in 4 days. We need to move those cars under maximum security. Or don't move them at all. Pull out of the auction. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And let him win. Let him destroy our reputation by making us too scared to show up. Landon, your ego isn't worth risking everything. This isn't ego. I cut her off. This is business. If we pull out of Barra Jackson, every single client we have will wonder if we're reliable. The whole company is built on trust and reputation. We can't afford to look weak. She grabbed my arm, her grip tight, her eyes pleading. And we can't afford to walk into whatever trap he's set. You don't know Holden like I do. He's planned for every contingency. If you bring those cars to Scottsdale, something will go wrong. Then we make sure it doesn't. How? She challenged. How do you outsmart someone who's always 3 moves ahead? A plan started to form. A risky one, but maybe our only shot, by making moves he doesn't expect. I pulled out my phone and dialed Cisco, my head of logistics. Change your plans, I said, the moment he answered. The Barrett-Jackson cars don't ship Tuesday. They ship tonight. Different route, different hauler, different everything, and only you and I know the details. Boss, that's a massive logistics change. He started, the panic clear in his voice, which is exactly why Ashworth won't see it coming. Make it happen! I hung up before he could argue further and looked at Natasha. If he's planned for Tuesday, Monday night will catch him completely off guard. And if he's watching our facilities, seeing us scramble will make him think he's already won. Or it will make him accelerate whatever he's planning, she countered, her voice laced with worry. Let him try. We'll be ready. But even as I said the words, a knot of doubt tightened in my stomach. I wasn't sure I believed it myself. Natasha was right, Holden. Ashworth had proven he was smart, ruthless, and always ahead of the game. Going to Scottsdale felt exactly like walking into a trap. But what other choice did we have? Let him destroy everything I'd built from the ground up. Let him prove that Natasha's presence in my life was toxic. Demonstrate to the world that love in her because yes, in that moment, I was starting to realize that's what this terrifying, all-consuming feeling was, meant losing everything I'd ever worked for. No. Absolutely not. I'd rather fight and lose than surrender without even trying. I met her gaze, my resolve hardening. We're going to Scottsdale, I said, my voice firm. We're bringing the cars, and we're going to catch this bastard in whatever trap he's set for us. Because if we don't end this now, he'll keep coming after us forever. Natasha looked at me, her eyes a storm of emotions. Fear was there, plain as day. But there was something else, too. Something that looked like love, or at least a faint, flickering memory of it. Then I'm coming with you, she said, her voice barely a whisper but filled with conviction. If this goes wrong, it's my fault. I should be there. Deal. We flew to Scottsdale the very next day. The desert landscape stretched out below us, a vast, empty canvas where anything could happen. The cars, our prized collection, would arrive 12 hours later, transported by a top-tier security company that specialized in high-value cargo. The auction was in 2 days. 2 days to set up, inspect the vehicles, prepare for the biggest show of our lives, and 2 days to wait for Holden Ashworth. To make his move, the air was thick with tension, a silent countdown to a confrontation we knew was coming. We were on his turf now, playing his game. We just had to hope our last-minute change of plans had thrown him off enough for us to survive it. Barrett-Jackson Scottsdale is one of those legendary names in the car world. It's not just an auction. It's the Super Bowl for classic car collectors. People fly in from all over the globe, from 6 different continents, all hoping to get their hands on a piece of automotive history. For a restoration company like ours, Restoration Vault, getting even one car featured is a massive deal. It's the ultimate validation of your work, the ultimate proof that you're at the top of your game. This year, we weren't just bringing one car. We had 6 masterpieces, each one painstakingly brought back to life by our team. The total estimated value of these vehicles was a staggering $12 million. If they sold well, if they hit their numbers or even exceeded them, our reputation would be cemented. We wouldn't just be a great restoration shop. We'd be the premier restoration company in all of North America. But if something went wrong, if anything went wrong, it would be catastrophic. It would destroy everything we had built. The day of the auction was electric with tension. The cars arrived under the cover of darkness at 3 in the morning. This wasn't your standard car carrier. This was an armored truck, complete with 4 security guards. The threat from our rival, Ashworth, was that real. My partner, Natasha, and I were there in person to supervise the unloading. We didn't leave anything to chance. We went over every single vehicle with a fine-tooth comb, inspecting every inch of polished chrome and painted steel. We were looking for any sign of sabotage, any hint of tampering, anything at all that might suggest Ashworth had gotten to them. But there was nothing. The cars were perfect. Pristine. They gleamed under the pre-dawn lights, exactly as they should be. As we walked through the cavernous auction hall, surrounded by millions of dollars of rolling art, Natasha finally broke the silence. "Maybe we were wrong," she said, her voice echoing slightly in the empty space. "Maybe he's not targeting the event." I wasn't so sure. I scanned the area, my eyes darting from the stage to the empty seats, to the security personnel starting their shifts. "Or maybe," I replied, "he's just waiting for the perfect moment to strike." The auction officially kicked off at 10 in the morning. The hall filled up quickly, a sea of wealthy collectors, enthusiasts, and media. The air buzzed with anticipation. By noon, 3 of our 6 cars had already crossed the auction block, and the results were incredible. First up was a stunning 1963 Corvette. The bidding was fierce, and it hammered down at $420,000, well above its estimate. Next was a menacing 1969 Camaro, which sold for $280,000. Then, a rare 1970 Plymouth Cuda, which brought in a cool $350,000. Every single car sold for more than we had hoped. The crowd was loving it. The bidding was fast and competitive, and everything was going perfectly. In fact, it was going to perfectly. A knot began to form in my stomach. I turned to Natasha, keeping my voice low. "Something's wrong," I muttered. She gave me a puzzled look. "What are you talking about?" "The sales are great. That's what bothers me," I interrupted. "It's too smooth. It's too easy. Where's Ashworth's play? He wouldn't just let us walk away with a $12 million victory. It's not his style." Just then, our 4th car began to roll onto the massive, rotating auction block. This was it. This was one of our crown jewels. A legendary 1967 Shelby GT 500. A true icon. We expected this car alone to sell for well over $1 million. The auctioneer, a master of his craft, started his rhythmic, hypnotic patter, and the bids started flying immediately. The numbers on the giant screens climbed higher and higher. $700,000, $800,000, $900,000. The tension in the room was palpable. Everyone knew this was a special car. And then, my phone rang. The screen flashed an unknown number. My first instinct was to ignore it, to focus on the auction. But a gut feeling, a cold premonition, made me swipe to answer. "Hello," I said. A voice came through the line, smooth, cultured, with a faint European accent that sent a shiver down my spine. "Mr. Vega." I knew that voice. I'd only heard recordings of it, but Icaneo Italiano, Ashworth. There was a soft chuckle on the other end. "The same. I'm calling to congratulate you on your auction success. It's quite impressive, really. You've built something truly remarkable at Restoration Vault." My hand tightened on the phone. I cut through the pleasantries. "What do you want?" he continued as if I hadn't spoken. "I want to make you an offer. You see, I have in my possession certain documents. Documents relating to the provenance of your beautiful vehicles. Specifically, I have documentation that seems to show that 3 of the cars you're currently selling were in fact stolen property, recovered through some very questionable channels and then sold with fraudulent titles." My blood ran cold. The noise of the auction faded into a dull roar in my ears. "That's a lie," I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. "Is it?" Ashworth's voice was laced with mock sincerity. "I have very, very convincing paperwork, Mr. Vega. Bills of sale, police reports, records of ownership disputes. Imagine if I were to release these documents to the auction house, to the new buyers, to the press. Well, I imagine it would be quite damaging to Restoration Vaults. Pristine reputation, wouldn't you say?" My mind was racing. He was bluffing. He had to be. "You manufactured those documents," I shot back. "Prove it." he said calmly. Prove it in court. After months, maybe years, of litigation and terrible publicity. After your business has collapsed and all your clients have fled in terror. Oh, you could eventually win the case. Mr. Vega, I have no doubt. But by then, there won't be anything left for you to win. On the auction floor, I could hear the auctioneer's voice rising in a crescendo. The bidding on the Shelby had reached $1.1 million. A new record, but it felt like a funeral. What do you want? That's business. You have 60 seconds to decide. After that, I send the documents to every major automotive publication, every car collector forum, and directly to the battered Jackson organizers. Your choice, Mr. Vega. Your money or your reputation. I looked over at Natasha, who'd gone completely white. She'd heard just enough of the conversation to understand what was happening. Landon, don't, she said, her voice a desperate whisper. Don't pay him. He'll just keep coming back for more. 45 seconds. Ashworth's voice crackled through the phone. Down on the auction floor, the Shelby GT500 sold for $1.3 million. The crowd erupted in applause. It was our biggest sale of the day, a moment that should have been a triumph. Instead, my stomach was in knots. 30 seconds. How do I know you'll actually destroy the documents? I asked, stalling, trying to find a way out, any way out. You don't. That's the beauty of extortionate. Requires trust. Or rather, it requires you to trust that I'm more interested in money than revenge. And I assure you, Mr. Vega, I am a businessman first. Give me the $2 million, and I have no further interest in you or Ms. Worthington. 15 seconds. Natasha grabbed my arm, her grip tight. Please, don't let him win. But what choice did I have? $2 million versus everything I had spent my life building. The math was brutal, but it was crystal clear. Fine, I said, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. I'll buy. I'll buy. Excellent decision. I'll send wiring instructions within the hour. Pleasure doing business with you, Mr. Vega. And then he hung up. The line went dead, but the silence was deafening. Natasha was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. Everything he's doing because of me. Stop. This isn't your fault. You didn't ask him to target us. But he is targeting us because of me. Because I worked for you. Because you cared enough to give me a second chance. Because she stopped, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. You should fire me. Cut all ties. Maybe then he'll leave you alone. We've had this conversation before, I said, my voice firm. I'm not firing you. Even if keeping me costs you millions. Even then. The wiring instructions arrived just 20 minutes later. An offshore account. Of course, untraceable, impossible to recover once the money was sent. I stared at my phone, at the numbers that would drain Restoration Vault's operating capital and put us in serious financial jeopardy. It would take years to recover, if we ever could. But what other choice did I have? My reputation, my business, my entire life's work was on the line. With a heavy heart, I was just about to authorize the transfer when Natasha's phone rang. Shattering the tense silence, she looked at the screen and froze, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and dread. It's him, Ashworth. Calling me directly. Don't answer. But it was too late. She had already answered, her hand moving almost on its own. Hello, Holden? Her voice was cold, controlled, a stark contrast to the tears just moments before. I couldn't hear his side of the conversation, but I watched her face, a canvas of shifting emotions. I saw shock, then anger, and finally, something that looked like grim satisfaction. "You're absolutely certain?" she asked into the phone. A pause. "Yes. Yes. Yes. I understand. Thank you. Thank you." She ended the call and looked at me, her expression unreadable. What was that? What did he want? He didn't want anything, she said slowly. He was calling to inform me of something, that a certain classic car, a very specific 1968 Ford Mustang Fastback, had just been flagged by Interpol. It was stolen from a private collection in Germany 3 years ago. I frowned, confused. Okay. And she continued, a small, chilling smile playing on her lips. He thought I should know because he's the one who just bought it. The winning bid on the auction floor just moments ago. One of Ashworth's shell corporations. He just spent $1.3 million on a stolen car. My mind raced, trying to put the pieces together. The Shelby. He bought the stolen Shelby. Why would he tell you that? Because he's arrogant, Natasha said. He wanted to rub it in my face. To show me that while he was taking $2 million from you, he was also making a brilliant investment. He thought he'd gotten a legendary car for a bargain price. He was gloating. It took a second for the full implication to sink in. But when it did, a slow smile spread across my face. So, he paid over $1 million for a car he can't ever legally sell, or even show in public. Exactly, Natasha confirmed. He's stuck with it. And better yet, she pulled out her phone again. While he was so busy gloating, I was recording the call. Everything he said, including the part where he admitted, in his own arrogant way, that he was the new, proud owner of a stolen vehicle. My jaw dropped. You recorded him. The entire conversation is right here, she said, tapping her phone. Proof that Holden Ashworth, the self-proclaimed businessman first, knowingly purchased stolen goods. A felony. This changes everything. The $2 million, the extortion. It's all connected. We have him. We have leverage. Real leverage. The feeling was incredible. The weight that had been crushing me just minutes ago was suddenly lifted. The despair turned into a surge of adrenaline. The brutal math had changed. It wasn't my money versus my reputation anymore. Now, it was his freedom versus mine. We need to move fast, I said, my mind already working out the next steps. We need to contact my lawyer, and we need to get a message to Ashworth before he realizes what a colossal mistake he has just made. Natasha nodded, her eyes gleaming with a fiery determination I hadn't seen before. Let me do it, she said. Let me be the one to call him. I want to hear the sound of his voice when he understands that the game is over, and that he lost. I handed her my phone. Be my guest, I said. I couldn't think of anyone who deserved it more. She dialed his number, putting the call on speaker for me to hear. It rang twice before he picked up. Mr. Vega. Ashworth's voice was smooth, confident. I was just about to check if the wire transfer had gone through. It's not Mr. Vega, Natasha said, her voice like ice. It's Natasha. And we need to talk about your new car. There was a pause on the other end. I could almost picture the smug look on his face faltering, replaced by confusion. My new car? What about it? Oh, nothing much, Natasha replied, her tone deceptively sweet. Just that it's a lovely shade of stolen. And I have a wonderful recording of you admitting to purchasing it. The silence on the other end of the line was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. It stretched on for what felt like an eternity. When Ashworth finally spoke, the smooth confidence was gone, replaced by a raw, sputtering rage. You wouldn't dare. Try me, Natasha shot back. You gave Mr. Vega 60 seconds. I'll give you 30. 30 seconds to transfer $1.3 million back to the Barry-Jackson escrow account to nullify the sale of that Shelby, and another $2 million to a Chewy of my choosing. or this recording goes to the authorities, along with a detailed account of your little extortion attempt. Your choice, Holden. Your money. Or your freedom. I watched Natasha, no longer a victim, but a queen checkmating a king. She had taken his power, his arrogance, and turned it against him in the most brilliant way possible. The threat against me, against Restoration Vault, had evaporated. Ashworth, the man who held all the cards just 10 minutes ago, now had nothing. The tables hadn't just turned. They had been completely flipped over. And as I listened to the panicked, defeated sounds coming from the other end of the phone, I knew we had won. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about justice, and it was about to be served. Thank you for watching. I'm quitting, effective immediately. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I stared at her, completely blindsided. What? Why? She wouldn't meet my eyes. Because I've caused you nothing but trouble. The whole situation with Ashworth, the security costs, the constant stress, the danger. You hired me to be your CFO, Landon, not to bring criminals to your doorstep. You deserve better than this. My head was spinning. That's not your decision to make. Yes, it is, she insisted, her voice firm but trembling. It's my resignation, and I'm giving it. Well, I don't accept. You have to, Natasha. Stop. I couldn't let her do this. I stepped forward, grabbed her shoulders gently, and made her look at me. Her eyes were filled with a mix of guilt and resolve. I don't want you to quit, I said, my voice low and urgent. I want you to stay. And not because you're a good CFO, even though you are. Not because the company needs you, even though it does. I want you to stay, because ... And the words were right there, on the tip of my tongue. The truth I'd been avoiding for months, maybe even longer. I took a deep breath, because I never stopped loving you. Even when you hurt me so badly, even when I thought I hated you, even when I hired you partly for revenge, somewhere underneath all of that pain and anger, I still loved you. And working with you these past few months, it's just reminded me of all the reasons why. She stared at me, her eyes wide with shock. Landon, you can't. I can. I cut her off softly. I do, and I'm tired of pretending this is just business between us. It's not. It never was. I don't deserve this, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Neither of us deserves half of what we've gotten in life. Good or bad, I said, my grip on her shoulders softening. But here we are anyway, trying to figure out what comes next. And for me, I'd really like what comes next to include you, if you want that too. A tear escaped and traced a path down her cheek. I want that more than anything, she whispered, but I'm terrified. I'm terrified I'll hurt you again, that I'll disappoint you, that I'll prove I haven't really changed. Then we'll deal with it if it happens, I said, a wave of certainty washing over me. But Natasha, I'm willing to risk it. The question is, are you? And then she kissed me, right there in the middle of the Barrett-Jackson parking lot, surrounded by $1 million cars and the ghosts of our complicated past. She pulled me close and kissed me, and I kissed her back, pouring every ounce of hope and longing into it. It wasn't a solution to all our problems, but it was a beginning. Promise. 6 months later, I stood in Restoration Vaults, original facility to single garage bay, where this whole crazy journey had started. The air was thick with the dust of demolition as workers tore down the wall to expand into the adjacent building. We'd outgrown the space. Again, the success at Barrett-Jackson had been a tidal wave, bringing a flood of new clients, new projects, and incredible new opportunities. We simply needed more room, more equipment, more capacity to handle it all. Crazy, isn't it? Natasha's voice broke through my thoughts. She appeared at my side, a warm coffee in her hand, which she offered to me. 3 years ago, this was one single bay. Now it's a multi-city operation with over 100 employees. It's weird seeing them tear down that wall, I admitted, taking a sip of the coffee. That's where I worked on my very first restoration, A 1965 Mustang that someone had literally abandoned in a barn. What happened to it? She asked, her eyes tracing the lines of the demolition. I sold it for 50 grand, used the profit to rent a second bay and hire my very first employee. A smile tugged at my lips as the memory came flooding back. I felt like I'd conquered the world. In a way, you had, she said, bumping her shoulder against mine. You'd proven that being a mechanic could be so much more than people expected. We stood there for a few moments in comfortable silence, watching the wall come down, brick by brick. It felt symbolic, like we were breaking down the barriers of our own past. I got the paperwork from the lawyers, Natasha said, her tone shifting to business. The Ashworth case officially settled. Both men pled guilty. Holden got 12 years in federal prison. His associate got 8. And they're being ordered to pay restitution to all the victims, including me. That's great news, I said, feeling a weight lift. How much will you get back? Maybe 20% of what they stole, she said with a shrug. It's enough to rebuild my savings, pay off some debts. It's not enough to erase what happened, but it's something. It's closure. That's good, I said, squeezing her hand. It is. She paused, and I saw a different kind of determination flicker in her eyes. I've also been thinking about the future, about what I want to do long term. Something in her tone made me tense up instantly. My mind flashed back to the parking lot. What do you mean? Relax, she said with a small laugh, seeing the look on my face. I'm not quitting again. But I do have an idea. A proposal, actually. She pulled a familiar-looking folder from her bag, the classic Natasha move when she was about to present a business plan, and handed it to me. What's this? I asked, my curiosity piqued. It's a plan for a new division of Restoration Vault, she explained, her voice buzzing with excitement. Not just restoration, but also acquisition and investment. The idea is, we identify undervalued classic cars, we purchase them, we restore them to our standards, and then we sell them at major auctions. Basically, we formalize what we've already been doing informally with cars like the Ferrari 250G. I flipped through the proposal. As always, it was incredibly thorough, impeccably detailed, with charts and projections that showed a significant potential for returns. This would require a major capital investment, I noted, looking up at her. Which we have, thanks to the Barra-Jackson sales, she countered smoothly. And I've already identified 3 prime cars currently available that fit the profile perfectly. There's a 1961 Jaguar E-Type, a 1970 Plymouth Superbird, and a 1954 Mercedes 300 SL. The total acquisition cost would be around $4 million. But the estimated post, $12 million. My eyebrows shot up. That's ambitious. That's growth, Landon, she said, her eyes shining. We've maxed out what we can do with client restoration work alone. If we want to scale this company further, we need to start creating the value ourselves instead of just charging for our services. She was right. She was absolutely right. It was the perfect next step. A bold, risky, and brilliant move that could elevate Restoration Vault to a whole new level. It was a future I couldn't have imagined a year ago. Looking at her, so confident and passionate, and then at the walls coming down around us, I knew we were building something much more important than just a bigger garage. We were building a future together. And for the first time in a long time, the road ahead looked clear. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. I'd spent hours going over the proposal she handed me. Every number checked out. The math was flawless. The strategy behind it was sound, and most importantly, it aligned perfectly with the vision I had for the company's future. I looked up at her, a decision already made. Let's do it. But there's one condition. She tilted her head, curious. What's that? This division. It's all yours to run. You'll make the final calls on acquisitions. You'll manage the projects from start to finish, and you'll handle the auction sales. I'll provide the oversight and the resources you need. But this is your baby. Her eyes widened, a flicker of surprise and something else, gratitude shining in them. Landon, that's a huge amount of trust you're placing in me. I know. And you've earned every bit of it. Over these past 6 months, You've shown me that you're not just competent, you're visionary. You have this incredible ability to see opportunities that I completely miss. You think strategically in ways I just don't. If I give you control of this division, I have no doubt you'll build something truly incredible. She paused, a thoughtful look on her face. What would we call it? I thought for a moment, the name coming to me almost instantly, Vault Acquisitions. It would be part of Restoration Vault, but distinct. Your division, your reputation, your success. A smile spread across her face. Not just any smile, but the real, genuine one that I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. I love it. And Landon, thank you for trusting me, for believing that I could be more than my worst moment. We both became more than our worst moments. That's kind of our thing, isn't it? She leaned in and kissed me, and I pulled her close, wrapping my arms around her. For a moment, all the noise from the construction site around us just faded into the background. It was just the two of us, standing there, building something new together. Just then, my phone started ringing, breaking the spell. I glanced at the screen and decided to ignore it, but it rang again, persistent. You should probably answer that, Natasha said, pulling back slightly. I sighed and checked the screen again. It was my real estate agent. Vega, Landon. I have some great news about that property you've been eyeing. The owner accepted your offer. It's 40,000 square feet, right in the heart of the warehouse district. You can close in 30 days. Location number 5. The thought sent a jolt of excitement through me. We were still growing, still expanding, still building our dream, make it happen. I hung up the phone and turned back to Natasha, a grin spreading across my face. How do you feel about Los Angeles? She looked at me, puzzled. For what? For restoration vaults. 5th location, 40,000 square feet. It's more than enough room for our traditional restoration work and for your new acquisitions division. Her jaw dropped. You're serious? Completely. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. That means a proper facility, a dedicated staff, and all the resources you need to compete at the highest level. Without another word, she threw her arms around my neck, holding on tight. I love you. Have I mentioned that recently? Not in the last hour, I teased. Well, I do. I love you. I love your ambition. I love your vision. I love that you see the potential in things, in cars and in people, and you help them become what they truly meant to be. I learn from the best, Premet aside. Softly, a very wise woman once told me that I could be more. And she was right, just not in the way she originally thought. I was so stupid back then. You were lost. There's a big difference. And now you're found. We bought our. As we stood there, the workers finally finished demolishing the last section of the wall. Where there had once been a barrier, there was now just open space. Room to grow, room to expand, room to become something bigger. It felt a lot like us. 3 years passed in a blur of hard work and incredible growth. I found myself standing at another Barry Jackson auction, the electric buzz of the crowd all around me, but my focus was on the stage, where a pristine 1967 Shelby GT500 was under the gleaming lights. This wasn't just any Shelby. It was the original one, the very car that Ashworth's partner had stolen all those years ago. We had managed to recover it, a victory in itself. But what happened next was a testament to everything we had built. Under Natasha's expert guidance at Vault Acquisitions, the car was restored to absolute perfection. Every detail meticulously brought back to its former glory. And now, here it was, finding a new home, a new chapter in its long story. The bidding was fierce, the numbers climbing higher and higher. The auctioneer's voice echoed through the hall, finally landing on a staggering figure. $2.7 million. The gavel fell, and a wave of applause erupted. I looked over at Natasha, who was standing beside me, a look of immense pride on her face. Her division, her success. She had taken the trust I gave her and built an empire. We had started with a broken-down garage and a handful of shattered dreams. Now, we had locations across the country, a reputation for excellence, and a team that was more like a family. Natasha stood beside me, no longer just my CFO. She was now the coup of Restoration Vault and the CEO of Vault Acquisitions. The divisions D personally built up from scratch were now contributing a massive 40% of the company's total revenue from last year. And on a more personal note, we'd gotten married a year ago. It was a small, intimate ceremony, just our family and closest friends, right there in the original garage where this whole incredible journey began. We didn't want a fancy venue or a big society wedding. It was hus to us, choosing each other all over again, and choosing better this time around. That's a good sale, she said, her voice pulling me back to the present. The auctioneer's hammer had just fallen on a vintage Shelby, fetching a price that made the crowd buzz. I nodded, a small smile playing on my lips. Your acquisitions division did 3 times better last quarter, I told her, feeling a swell of pride. She just shook her head slightly. Team effort, she replied, ever humble. I squeezed her hand. Your team, your success. She finally broke into that smile I loved so much. Our success. She corrected me gently. I wouldn't be here without you. I had to disagree. Actually, you would. It just wouldn't be in the same way. You'd have rebuilt yourself somehow, found another path. You're far too resilient not to. She thought about that for a moment. Maybe, she conceded, but I'm really glad I found this path. And I'm even gladder I found you again. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Cisco, our guy on the ground. The new Miami facility is officially open. Ribbon cutting went perfect. Press coverage is great. When are you and Natasha visiting? I showed the screen to Natasha. Location number 7. It was hard to believe sometimes. We were now operating in 7 major cities, employing over 200 people, and generating annual revenues north of $150 million. Not too bad for a guy who just liked fixing cars. We should probably go to Miami next week, I said, already thinking about the logistics. Make sure the new facility is running as smoothly as Cisco says it is. Natasha was already on it. I'll have my assistant book the flights. She paused, her expression turning more serious. Do you ever think about that night? She asked softly. When I ended things, when I told you that you didn't matter. I took a breath. Sometimes, I admitted honestly, I think about it all the time, she confessed, her voice barely a whisper, about how close I came to losing you forever. About how, Izali, this all could have gone so differently. I turned to face her, cupping her cheek. But it didn't, I reminded her. We got a second chance. Most people don't get that. Her eyes looked pained. Most people don't deserve one. I'm not sure I did. Everyone deserves a second chance, I said firmly. Not everyone takes advantage of it. But you did, and that's what matters. She leaned against me, her head resting on my shoulder, and we turned back to watch the auction. Rare, beautiful cars, finding new owners, dreams being realized, value being created right before our eyes. It was a world we had built together. Hey, I said softly after a few minutes of comfortable silence. Remember when you said I was just a mechanic? That I lacked ambition? I felt her tense up. Please, don't remind me. I cut her off gently. I'm still a mechanic. I still work on the cars myself. I still love getting my hands dirty. That hasn't changed. She relaxed, a small smile returning to her face. I know. And I love that about you. But, I continued, I'm also more now. I'm the CEO of a company, an employer to hundreds of people, a creator of value, a husband. And soon, as soon-to-be father, I stopped dead, realizing what I'd just said. The words had just tumbled out. She pulled back and stared at me, her eyes wide with shock. What? She breathed. I couldn't help but grin. I saw the pregnancy test in the bathroom trash. You're not as sneaky as you think you are. Her eyes immediately filled with tears, but they were happy tears. I was going to tell you tonight. I had a whole plan. I pulled her into a hug, cutting off her panicked explanation. "Are you happy about it?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. She pulled back just enough to look at me. "Are you?" "Terrified and thrilled in equal measure," I said, and the relief that washed over her face was beautiful. "Same," she whispered. We just stood there for a moment, in the middle of a bustling auction house, surrounded by million-dollar cars and the incredible life we'd built, just trying to wrap our heads around the new life we were about to create. "Boy or girl?" I finally asked, breaking the silence. "It's too early to know," she said, wiping a tear from her cheek. "Does it matter?" "Not even slightly," I replied instantly. "As long as they're healthy and happy." She laughed, a real, genuine laugh. "And hopefully they inherit your work ethic instead of my former snobbery." I chuckled. "Hey, your former snobbery is what made you so successful. It just took you a little while to figure out what real success actually meant." The auction eventually ended, and we walked out into the warm Arizona sunset, hand in hand. The conversation had already shifted to nursery colors and baby names and how on earth we were going to manage to hyperwork careers and parenthood. Some people might look at our story and call it a fairy tale ending. You know, the grease-stained mechanic who proves his worth and wins the girl. The wealthy woman who learns that money isn't what truly matters. The second chance that actually worked out against all odds. But it wasn't a fairy tale. It was so much better than that. Because fairy tales, they always skip the hard parts. They don't show you the grueling work of rebuilding a life, of earning forgiveness, of making the daily, conscious choice to be a better person. They don't show the mistakes, the arguments, the setbacks. They don't show you how love, by itself, isn't always enough. You also need respect and true partnership and a shared vision for the future. What Natasha and I had wasn't magic. It was a choice. Every single day, we chose each other. We chose to be better for ourselves and for the other person. We chose to build something meaningful together. And that's worth more than any fantasy or fairy tale. That was real. And I will take real over fantasy any day of the week. The mechanic she once dismissed had become a CEO. The woman who once valued money above all else had learned what true wealth really was. And that broken-down old Ferrari that first brought us back together, we restored it, piece by piece, to its former glory. Then we sold it for a handsome profit, and we used every single penny of that money to fund the scholarship we established, the Natasha Worthington Second Chance Scholarship, created specifically for people who are trying to rebuild their lives after financial hardship. Because sometimes people do get second chances. Sometimes they really do deserve them. And sometimes, if they're very, very lucky, they even make them count. Thanks for watching our story unfold. If it resonated with you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more. We'll see you next time.